From a single spark to sustained success.
Hey, 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 you know who it is. It's Zeus Cruz of Olympian Multimedia, and we are presenting you with a segment entitled From Spark to Sustained Success. And as you can see today, we are in our virtual studio today, and we got a special guest. As you can see on the screen, she's no stranger to the show. She's been on a few episodes. This is a person that I greatly admire from afar, really because we're both similar as far as like we got the day job, but we're also doing the business. She's doing a lot more bigger things than I am. I'm trying to catch up to her. But I definitely admire her for her dedication to her craft and always, no matter what's going on, just staying focused and determined on bringing her vision to life. It's truly inspiring and encouraging to me because I have my moments where I'm looking like, why am I even bothering doing this? But I always refer back to her. She always gives me so much encouragement to keep pushing forward. And she is the founder of Wordsmith Resource LLC and the proud author of Bam, Gotta Be a Better Way book series. So please give it up for Miss Sandrea Flowers. Sandy, how are we doing today?
Hi, Zeus. Good morning. Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Trying to keep up to you. You said you were trying to keep up with me. I'm trying to keep up with
No,
you.
no, no.
But
It's all you, Sandy. It's all you.
all is well. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, because I know you got a lot going on. We're kind of going to touch base on it toward the end of this segment, to enlighten the viewers on what you got going on. So it's definitely just it's always an honor and privilege to have you on the show, and knowing that you're uber busy, just to take some time out and talk about some things that we could share with the viewers out there. So for you guys out there, the purpose of this segment is to highlight key components and dynamics when developing a concept and project and how to manage it in an effective manner that can produce results for long-term growth and for success. And this is not just for like if you're aspiring to be an entrepreneur, we're also reaching out for people out there who are content creators, who are just trying to do projects and just trying to get an understanding of how you can create the foundation and start building levels to it, tiers to it, so that you can gain some type of success, right? So basically what we're going to start off with is the life cycle of a creative concept. And from here, we're going to break it down into three phases for you guys. The first one being the architectural build, the second one being long term management, and phase three is overcoming the slump. So we're going to get on touch base and just, we're just going to, me and Sandy's are going to pick our heads back and forth a little bit. Hopefully, you get some encouragement. Hope you got your notepads ready. Take down some notes. Hopefully, this will inspire you to get into whatever endeavors that you're trying to get into. So, Sandy, as I said, we're going to start off and start with this life cycle, the creative concept, and introducing it as the birth of the big idea, right? So, unfortunately, to say this is that at times we generate a lot of ideas, but some ideas are just not workable or viable, right? The intention is good. It's not to say the execution can't be done or uh, can't be put into place, but depending on your situation and how you determine certain elements as far as to put the idea together, it may not be the best course of action. You might have to think of something else. So, Sandy, how can someone distinguish between a fleeting thought and what could be an idea that could actually be a viable project?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I think well, it's going to obviously be different for each person, right? But in terms of the idea, something fleeting from something more sustainable or long term, I think it will always boil back down to, are you passionate about it, right? So if you have the idea and you let it sit for a little bit, let it marinate. But it keeps coming back to you. Let's say it's days, weeks, months later. No, you need to bring that idea to fruition. Especially, in my opinion, if it's tied to you identifying and filling a gap, you got to do it. You got to do it. So I think it, of course, there's layers to it. So it involves coming up with a viable blueprint, right? You can't just have an idea and then think you're gonna just bring it to market. There's planning involved. You got to have some level of organization. No one is an island, so you need a team. You need somebody. You need somebody other than yourself. Even if it's just one additional person, you need somebody. I think those components, those aspects will determine or help you make it go from something that's fleeting to something that's a bit more permanent.
Really good point. And I hope you viewers took in what Sandy's saying is about you got to have that passion for it. That's where the spark starts when it comes to an idea. And the reason why I say that, I don't know, Sandy, in your interactions with people and people that you come across. I know with me, like for instance, like there are people out there that know I'm an author. I'm a published author. And they'll come up to me and then be like, "Man, I had a great idea for a book." And they're breaking it down to me for a good 5 minutes. And it doesn't sound half bad what their idea is, but it's always been stuck at the idea part. Because then the next logical question I will ask them, right, is, well, how come you didn't start writing it? Because it sounds good to me the way you're describing it. And they're like, well, I ain't really big on like writing, you know, you know, maybe if I had somebody else do the writing for me, maybe I might be inclined to do it. But I don't know, it just seems like too much work. So the fact that they're so passionate enough just to explain the idea to me, but they don't want to be engaged themselves,
Yeah,
then it wasn't really a true passion to begin with, right? It's just that fleeting thought. It's just like, man, that sounds great that we could do this, but I know there's a lot behind that. You know what I mean? Like gathering resources or just putting in the work and the time and the effort, something that they don't truly want to sacrifice themselves, right? So it's tough. It's easy for anybody to just go ahead and say, yeah, I can do this. But to your point, what are you doing as far as formulating a game plan? Are you developing an outline? Are you developing some type of steps, goals for yourself, as it were, so that you could kind of progress through and start really formulating and putting this idea together and making it into something, right? So I think what we want to let you viewers know is that besides the passion, you got to have purpose. Like your
yes,
idea has to have a purpose. Because if you don't have a purpose behind it, then a lot of times you want people to buy into what you're doing and they don't really have an understanding of what you're trying to do. When you agree, Sandy?
absolutely, 100%. It's everything that you've said times 100. I would add a lot of the, in terms of bringing something to life. Research is big. Like, okay, you can have a great idea, like you said, but what research have you done, right?
Right.
Have you did you run it by uh, that confidant, that group that you have that you trust? Did you do any beta testing? Hey, what do you think about this idea? Not giving away the whole kit and caboodle because people take ideas, but running something past them to get their idea, right? That's how we figure out.
Mhm.
Okay, so there's something here, but again, like you mentioned, you got to do the legwork. No one's gonna do that for you. Well, unless you're what's the gentleman's name? Unless you are what's the famous guy? He's a trillionaire now. He's a trillionaire. Not Eli. What's the man's name?
Oh, you talking about Elon Musk?
Yes. Sorry. Unless you're Elon Musk, now he can spit out ideas. He has teams to go and do the legwork. No, you've got to do that for yourself until you get yourself established. You have to put that legwork in. And I think it really speaks to. I think there's a story behind doing that initially. once everything is established, you have a story to fall back on now that you can put out there. And you already know everything is storytelling. How do we sell? How do we get customers? How do we keep followers? Everything is storytelling. So it makes sense to be part of all of that initial grunt work because you can speak to it.
Really good points. And also too, like the idea has to be from you. Like you got to put a little bit of like your personality into it, who you
Absolutely.
are as a person, as a character. It's sort of like we're both authors. So it's kind of like when we go into our writing project, when we're ready to put a book together, it's almost like we got to put a little bit of our identity, our personality in there. Even
Absolutely.
though we're writing about something else, we're not per se writing about ourselves, but just for the readers to kind of resonate with what you have in your book. You need to put a little bit of your personality in there. Cause it's easy for like if you're gonna start putting an idea together and quickly somebody will be like, well, I done heard 1,000 other people do that.
Right.
So there's no originality. And then quickly people are gonna be like, well, you didn't really put much thought
Right.
because I just seen somebody do that last week, or I seen a few people do that. So it kind of speaks to your point. Are you doing the research? You know, are you really truly getting an understanding of what you're about to get into, or is it like you're just trying to follow a trend? And don't get me wrong, I know you guys are thinking out there like, hold up, Zeus. A lot of people have become successful, content creators have become successful because they do these trends and whatnot. I'm not saying you can't do that. You know, if that's the avenue you want to go into, knock yourself out, you know. But I feel like me and Sandy are speaking more to the people who are about originality and starting from the ground up and just putting something fresh out there to kind of like expand people's horizons, expand their perspective on things. You know what I mean? I think we're reaching out more to you out there. But again, whatever avenue that you decide to go through, you know, just have the passion, put your personality, your input into it, and find the joy in what you're doing. Because I think
Absolutely.
people notice that too, right, Sandy? Like, if you got something out there, but it doesn't really seem like you're really invested in that, and it's kind of like you're just doing something just to do something, right?
Yeah, I think people can immediately detect that. And as you mentioned, the whole everybody's doing the same old thing. I think as we move more and more towards AI, everything is going to be like it's going to be bland because we're not. I don't want to say we're necessarily saying the same thing, but it's going to come across that way. Very whitewashed,
Yeah.
very vanilla. So now there's no better time than now to show that flavor, that flair, that uniqueness, stand out and provide something or show something that we don't already have. Yeah.
I like that metaphor you put in there, man. That was nice, man. I like that, man. I hope you guys are picking up on this, man. I'm not going to keep reminding y'all to take your pens and pads out. I mean, you can jot this down on your phone too. There's some gems that we're dropping here. So this was a great segue to go to our first phase, which I mentioned is the architectural build, right? So what does that mean? That means what I call, and you know, you guys hear me say it all the time, the meat and potatoes of it all, right? So moving from a premise to a blueprint, we kind of touch base on that. What does that kind of entail? You know, if you're going to try to map things out, obviously you want to define it by creating some modules, some components, maybe like a rough draft, as it were, of some goals that you want to accomplish. I'm going to speak personally to you, Sandy. Like, how do you will go about devising your goals and kind of like mapping it out accordingly, especially so that you don't get overwhelmed to the point where it's like it's becoming like too much and you start having like sort of like a breakdown, a shutdown. You know, how are you able to space out your goals and what you want to do when it comes to your ideas and your projects to ensure that you meet deadlines, but that you're not going to get burnt out?
Good question. Another good question. For me, I write stuff down. Like I know a lot of people still have veered towards the digital, right? writing it in,
Yeah.
recording it in their phone or using the iPad. I still write stuff down, and I use sticky notes, right? So I have the goals written down. I also put the goals. I also have it in my phone, but again, nothing. My saving grace is writing everything down. So I have it written down, and then each goal I break it down by. I want to know what the end goal is. Like, what's my result? What am I looking for? What am I looking to provide? Right. Make sure I have that nailed down, and then it has to make sense to me. Right. So I have the idea of what I want to do. I write it down. So I have that written, and I write down what the result is. This is what I hope to achieve. Right. And then I work from there, trying to put everything else in the middle together. So I think straight out the gate, you have to have a mission statement. What's your mission? What's your mission? What's your vision? Right? What, of course, what's your business model? What's your values? Long-term goals you don't necessarily have to map that out in the beginning. That might come down, like I don't establish my long-term goals initially, but I keep that top of mind and have that ready. And I think a lot of it is, for me anyways, is workflows. Okay, we're going to start with this, and then we're going to move to this, and then we're going to move to this. So of course, straight out the gate for me, whatever the idea is or the service or product I'm looking to do, how are we going to sell that? What business model are we using? Is this going to be under the parent LLC? Is this going to be a DBA? What are we doing? What are we doing? So nail that down, and then work from there. But the business structure is straight out the gate. Also, since we're in that creative field, this should actually be probably, well, right after you establish what business structure you're gonna use in terms of intellectual property. You already know this. I want to make sure that my stuff is not taken. I don't want to use the word stolen, but or copied. So those copyrights got to go out. Those trademark applications have to go out. So that's part of what I do initially to get stuff off the ground.
Good points. And just to further expand and expound on what you were just saying, also too, it'd probably be good to do some resource auditing, like auditing what you have currently, like identifying what you have versus what you need. I think
Absolutely.
sometimes people get that kind of misconstrued and they go into like their business idea or their project thinking that they need all these different elaborate components and elements in order to get things work or to get things going, and it just adds more cluster, like more clutter
Right.
to the mix. It just turns into a mess where like your purpose and your identity and what you're really searching for when it comes to your business or your project or your idea, it's not really being manifested, right? So when you think about what you have versus what you need, you enlighten to the points of like having like, are you going to utilize AI tools? How much of AI you're going to incorporate into your business? I mean, is that the identity that you want with your business or whatever it is that you're trying to do? You want it to be a focal point, like, hey, we're definitely going to be utilizing and implementing AI a lot, or different types of softwares, hardwares, or just even having specialized knowledge. Just goes back to what you originally said about the research. Again, people try to go into things thinking they have a total understanding of something when they really don't, because they're just basing it off of, I hate to say it because I've came across some people like this where just because they saw something on YouTube or they read something in a magazine that they liked or whatever, or they just read it somewhere and they seem to instantly just have like this understanding of it because whoever they were reading or whoever they were viewing in the video, they were the authority on it. So I know they weren't in line, so I'm just going to go about what they said or what they did. And it might have been great for them the way they went about conducting their business and formulating and putting together their business and their projects, but it may not be good for you, right?
I agree. I agree. Well, I think that's one of the, I guess I'll say, drawbacks to social media and everything on the internet. It looks easy. So we see stuff out there, it's trending. And even if so our parents like years ago, decades ago, they saw something and they were able to model it and pattern it. But we didn't have they didn't have internet back then. So you couldn't really tell.
Mhm.
Whereas now, no, it's cookie cutter because everything is out there and we can see it. And again, not necessarily a bad thing, but unless you put your spin on it, unless you introduce something unique, or even if you don't and you just literally model exactly what's already out there, you as the brand, you better be out there popping. You better that personality, that something has to stand out. You have to differentiate yourself somehow from everybody else. Otherwise, you're going to get lost in the sea of sameness, as it were.
And you know what? Before we move on, I'm so glad you brought that up because I've done a few symposiums within the last few months where I was invited to not explain, but discuss the different facets of media and how you can utilize these different things in media to help you like promote, market, so forth and so on. Like just
Nice.
basically enhance your business in one way, shape, or form. And that's just a good point that you made because people feel like how can I put it? People feel like there's like only one way of doing things, right? And there couldn't be no possible way to go about doing it a different way,
Right.
simply because, yes, you're getting an understanding of your customer base. If you're a content creator, you're getting an understanding of what type of audience that you want. But people are fickle and people change.
All the time.
So it's like, why don't you get that kind of understanding that it's not to deviate from who you are as a person, but sometimes you got to make that kind of change accordingly so that not only can you keep the customer base that you have and the audience that you have, but then you can go beyond that and maybe
Absolutely.
find a new audience and find
Absolutely.
new customers and whatnot. I think people hold on to so much of like, I have these people investing in me and that's it. But it's like there's so much more out there and you can put yourself in position where you can reach out for more if you just do your due diligence and get an understanding of what people want, but
Yes.
still stay true to yourself, if that
Wholeheartedly
makes any
agree.
sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So for our next phase two, I mentioned it's about long-term management. And this was just a great segue what we are just talking about and about scalability, right? So obviously, when you're doing different projects, you're going to be utilizing different media facets, right? We've been emphasizing it thus far. The video, text, the audio. Again, we have to talk about the AI.
Right.
It's booming right now.
Yeah.
You can't talk about anything without having AI injected to it, right? You alluded to it too, Sandy, about setting the goals, setting what we can, I guess you could term it as like milestones, like these markers that you can set for yourself, right? To avoid creative burnout, right? But Sandy, since we were talking about like you have a viable idea, you set the foundation, right? You're going about your execution, it's going good, right? But we were talking a little bit before we started filming about how you can't be naive to think that everything is just going to work out according to plan. Like all your T's are going to be crossed, all your I's going to be dotted right
Right.
from gate. At some point in time, you're going to have hiccups. There's going to be certain things that just doesn't work out. It's not meant to say that you or your team is purposely trying to sabotage what you got going on, but just things happen that sometimes it's just out of our control. So, Sandy, how can someone kind of refine or better yet redefine a project, their business, their idea as it grows without losing its original essence?
That's a good question. Okay, how can they redefine? Okay, interesting. Interesting. I would say that. Oh, I think you stumped me. We have to.
And this is
So
one of them rare moments.
if So, regardless of what your idea is, your product, your service, your project in its original form, in my opinion, regardless of what it is, right? If you keep the audience in mind, right? Remember where you are in terms of space and time. Where are we today in 2026? What's going on in the community, the environment, the country, the world? I think if you keep all of that in mind, keep that in perspective, figure out. Well, first, it, you need to know thyself, know thy company, know thy service. Okay, what are you currently offering? All right, and
Mhm.
are you offering 2018 stuff, or are you offering 2026 or 2028 stuff? You really have to know. I think a lot of times
Okay.
we are so in love with what we've created, we're not paying attention to what the market is out there. What do customers need? What does the market need? So,
Mhm.
there are times when you don't necessarily have to abandon the entire idea, or throw away the entire business. Figure out how you can bring your original idea up to today's standards. But that takes a lot of observation. It takes a lot of watchfulness, and again, it goes back to, do you know? Do you really understand? Like, what is your level of perception? Because there are folks out here who do have businesses, right? And I think that for some, they're just paying homage to themselves. Like, what are you really out here doing? Is it about just telling folks, I own my own business, I'm an entrepreneur? Are you really trying to satisfy a need out there? So you can redefine without completely abandoning. It just takes it takes discipline to do that. It really does.
And you said I stumped you. Come on, Sandy. You got it. Really good point. But again, the key to elaborate on what you just said, it's about brand cohesion, right? It's about ensuring that your project evolves, your business evolves over time. Not to say you're going to follow trends, but it's always good to try to keep your business, keep your projects fresh. It's all about originality. You're competing with a lot of different people. And it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about with the change, how people think, like some people feel like they're the only ones doing that. Like you're the only streamer, you're the only content creator, you're the only entrepreneur, you're the only one that offers this type of product. And it's like you're competing with like a thousand upon thousands, millions of people, pretty much. It's a lot of people out here that's aspiring to be like content creators and business owners and some type of entrepreneurs. So you always got to feel like there's something or aspect of your business or your project that can evolve so that it could just be that much more better, right? So, but it can still fit within your broader creative umbrella. And just to give a quick example, is I talked to you this before, Sandy, about like with the business. You know, Olympian multimedia, what's the key word in there? Media. I deal with media. With media, it's been pretty much talked about throughout this segment about the AI. People are a lot more emboldened now to do things on their own. It's a little bit more sophistication when it comes to these applications. So they feel more emboldened to be like, look, man, it doesn't seem all that bad or hard to do. I'm just going to go ahead and do it, and it's going to save me time, right? So that kills a small business like myself because I deal with media, and AI pretty much covers all those bases when it comes to media. So, but to take like a positive out of a negative, I expanded the business or like involved it into like, okay, people don't necessarily want to come to me to like do anything when it comes to like photography or videography or music projects. But now I kind of flipped it so that whatever results they're getting from whatever AI app that they're using, sometimes they're not getting their desired results. It's not giving them exactly what they need. So now they're bringing me their content and be like, Zeus, it's not really up to where I wanted to be at. Can you make some adjustments here? And that just opened up just a beautiful lane for me where it's just like, okay, the business itself is starting to falter a little bit as far as like doing like photography and videography and so forth. But now I can flip it and being like, fine, you want to use these apps, but you're not always going to get the results you're looking for. Well, I can fix it for you. You know, I could re-edit
Absolutely.
it, I could remix it. So that's a way of just having like your business or your idea involving and still keeping you afloat, and you're still sticking to your purpose and to your identity. And then from there, word of mouth goes, right? Because now they're
Absolutely.
looking at it like, well, who did this for you? Well, Olympian Multimedia, Zeus and his team did it. Wow. So, I mean, do they do video projects? Do they do different things with video? Do they do different things with photo, with music? And now that just opens up that dialogue
Right.
where it's like, well, let me reach out to them and see if they could do something from the ground up. And that's right up our alley. You know, we take a lot of pride over here in the Olympian of just doing everything from the ground up, doing things fresh and so forth. So you be naive. I keep using that word naive, but you be naive to think that you feel like over time you can't have to make any type of adjustments to your business. You have to stay within the climate, right, Sandy?
I agree. I agree. And it all of everything you said, it just falls under our reinvention, repositioning, that whole strategic
Hmm.
renewal. So as you know, we gotta keep moving or we're gonna die. So it
Good point.
no, quite literally, we'll
Yeah.
wind up like every other business that has gone out of business.
Hmm.
To your point, as far as how you've adjusted, so there is still a niche. There's still a market of folks who cannot be bothered with AI doing it themselves. And I'm one of them. So I have tried too. Well, let me try this app, right? You pay whatever for the end for the year and blah 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 blah. And it frustrates me. I don't particularly like it. I'd rather not do it on my own if I don't have to. So like your business is always going to be needed. You just have to find those customers that are willing to pay. Because AI absolutely frustrates me. Well, these apps, some of these apps frustrate me because you have to tell them 1,000 times what in terms of the prompt. You got to give them the correct prompt. Even when you give them the correct prompt, the AI still messes it up. So you're never going to not be needed, and that's what businesses have. Small businesses, creative businesses have to remember you're always going to be needed. So you, if you can never take away that human element. That's what folks have to remember, right? That's never going to go away. And
Hmm.
even if society tries to the extent possible, that human element and whatever business is still around is what's going to be unique. That's what's going to stand out. So there will always be a need. There will always be a need. You just have to pivot.
And that's a great word that you use is just pivoting, you know? And I think a lot of times too is people are afraid of change. You know, I know there's local businesses where I live at down here. And, I just make a long story short, I was just trying to enlighten them on a different way of how they can market their business. And they're like, well, Zeus, I've been here for about 20 years, 20, 25, 30 years. I'm still in business. I don't really see the need to change, you know? But I was like, well, obviously you're still in business, but, is the business steady? They're like, well, it fluxes from time to time. I basically have my good seasons, as it were, during the year. And then there's a few months where it's just like, you know, I'm not cutting at a loss, but I'm pretty much just breaking even. And I'm like, so you never thought of like there's so many more people out here that could come and enjoy your establishment, right? You're just so secluded or so on to the point of just like your regular customers. You know what I mean? Where your business can grow. And I'm not even saying, maybe I'm speaking too far ahead, but maybe like your business can turn into a franchise, or at least you can open up another
Right.
restaurant somewhere else. You know what I mean? Maybe in another district, maybe in another county or so forth, and then you gain more customers and whatnot. But people are just kind of stuck in their ways, and you could just eventually you get it out of them. Like they're just afraid to change. They're so used to doing things a certain type of way. No, I don't. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to go into that kind of route. I feel safe. And sometimes, man, if you want to be successful in life, you got to make yourself uncomfortable
Absolutely.
in order to like reach that next plateau, that next tier. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? Or to add another layer to your vision. You got to make yourself uncomfortable. You got to think outside the box. Sometimes you're going to have to do some things that you personally are not comfortable with. And no, I'm not advocating something illegal. You know what I mean? But whatever's just like what you're used to be like your comfort zone, sometimes you might have to step out of that a little bit in order for your business to thrive, right? Or your project to thrive, right?
I
So
agree.
now we're going to, oh, I'm sorry for cutting you off.
No, no, go ahead, go ahead.
But now we go to our final phase, which is overcoming the slump, right? So what's that mean? That means managing complexity, guys, dealing with the depths of insanity that occurs when a project becomes larger than anticipated, right? So we kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier where we talked about you're adding too much components maybe to your business. Maybe you're adding too much layers to your project. You may not have every all the resources you need in order for your idea or your business to go forward and you're trying to make it work with like sort of like the bare minimum. The thing you were talking about, and I'm just going to go right off of what you were saying, Sandy, about the pivot. But then what I'm going to add is the pivot versus the persevere, right? Knowing when to change direction and when to push through when you're having this creative block or this technical block. So, Sandy, for you personally, how do you overcome that? Because me and you talk about this all the time of just having these creative blocks and not allowing the frustration from that to overwhelm us or overtake us to the point where we shut down. I don't want to do this no more. I'm just going to walk away from this until I get myself together. How do you personally find or what avenue did you use or what do you do within yourself to kind of like overcome that so that you don't get to the point where it's like, no, I'm not done. I'm done with this.
Well, for me, so as you said, we're similar. So we have a lot of ideas going on up here at once, right? We want to do
Mhm.
this. We want to do this. We want to do this. So, and I have ideas that, my base, my foundation, my framework is writing, right? I do have ideas that are not particularly associated with writing. So what I will do is, well, first of all, I have to slow down. Like we can't do everything all at once. So for me, I'll slow down, and then I want to, whatever the idea is, whatever the project is that I want to get off the ground, I want to tie it to my original passion. So what's the connection? So as you know, the parent company is Wordsmith Resource, right? I went into writing a book. So we have Release the Ink Publishing, right? And then now we have the museum, the pop-up museum that we hope we're going to get off the ground starting next week Saturday. For me, it has to connect. So everything I do falls under employees, the employee experience. What do employees need? So I start with that. Does it connect? Does it make sense? The other thing is, does it connect or go back to my mission and my vision? Again, it's all related. If
Mhm.
if there's a disconnect, I might put it off to the side and revisit it at a later time, right? Because for me, I don't want my vision to become bigger than my ability to manage it, right? So I try to
Um,
keep it.
mhm.
You can't go wrong with being with what's the word? With simplicity. You can't go wrong with simplicity and the basics. So I would say that in terms of those building blocks, again, I go back to my people. So if I know I'm doing too much, I'm going to run it by someone. Hey, what do you think about this? What are your thoughts? If they say no, you should probably put a pin in that, revisit it later. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I want to stay true to my core, right? and again, not take on too much. Because again, as you mentioned, we have our 9 to 5. I don't want to burn out. I don't want to burn out. So those are some of the things, yeah, I do and would do.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point. I mean, again, and it doesn't make you any less of a person if you run into these creative blocks, right? Or you have these technical issues. I mean, it goes back to what we were mentioning before. Again, you'd be naive to think that you're not going to have any kind of these issues that's going to come up. We're human,
Right.
right? It's just naturally you might get to the point where, like, you're thinking of an idea, you're going about different things with your business, but it's like you might just come to a halt where it's just like, man, I really thought I had all this planned out very well, and it turns out I didn't. You know what I mean? So it goes back to what we were talking about making the readjustments. It's about you can be ambitious, but you got to be realistic at the same time.
Absolutely.
So really push forward with your vision, with your ideas. If you have a true passion for it, go for it. Don't let nobody stop you, but also be realistic as far as what your limitations are along with your strengths. Because sometimes people get so far ahead of themselves and they overlook the fact that, again, unfortunately, you have some weaknesses. And you can't turn your blinders off to that because you're going to end up digging a bigger hole than you're already in, you know? And especially if you're working in the confines of a team, you're just kind of bringing the team down.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you're not with, like, let's say you're talking, you have a business and you have your team. And then you're so beyond and put the blinders on to like what your weaknesses are, not knowing that within your team, what your weaknesses is their strength. But because you're kind of letting ego get ahead of you and you're letting that ambition get too much ahead of you, you don't see that for yourself. And then you're trying to, like a chicken with his head cut off, as it were, trying to search for the answers to see how we can move on. And the answer's been in your group the whole time.
Right.
But you chose to overlook that. You know what I mean? And that's just considered like a waste, basically,
Absolutely.
internally within the business. You can generate waste, as it were, within your business.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's one of them, not putting people in the proper positions where your business can thrive. I've always said this all the time, and this is something I go with, is I never want to go in the room believing I'm the smartest person, because everybody has something to offer. You just got to open your mind to it. Yes, you might be the person in charge. Yes, you're the one that started the vision, but also too, they bring something to the table that is just going to bring so much more to
Absolutely.
what you're trying to accomplish. If you're just willing to open your mind, open your heart to it, and again, have faith not only in yourself but like the people that you work with, right? To know that we're all buying into this vision. We want to succeed.
Absolutely.
So, like, we're at the tail end of our segment, and I hope this was encouraging for you viewers out there. For those individuals out there, think big. You know what I mean? If you're dreaming big, think big, go all the way in. Don't let anything sidetrack you from what you're doing. We're just trying to encourage people and give enlightenment to people about you have to be realistic as you're moving forward. You need to put a plan in play. You need to get an understanding of exactly what you're trying to accomplish within your business or with your project. Get an understanding of your customer base. Get an understanding of the audience that you're trying to attract. Also, to recognize when a project is complete and how to transition it into your next beginning. You're only as good as your last idea, right? So, all about what Sandy said, make that transition to serve your purpose. You did this one idea, you're doing this one thing with your business. Now, how can I use that as a segue to move on to my next big idea so that I can continue to advance, right? So, if you guys out there don't remember nothing else, maybe you can remember this as the closing thought. The most important part of any project isn't just the start, it's the discipline to see it through its evolution.
Absolutely.
So Be disciplined, be focused. Yes, things come up that might sidetrack you a little bit. Don't let that overtake you or overwhelm you to the point where you're going to just stop and just be like, you know what, this was a waste of time. I'm not doing it. No, go all the way through. Trust me, you keep working at it. Sandy is a testament of it. Myself is a testament of it. You keep pulling through. You're going to start seeing them blessings. They may not be big blessings, but they're a blessing nevertheless, right? And talking about these blessings as we end this segment, we'll put the spotlight back on Sandy. I know you got some things going on, so let's enlighten the viewers real quick. I know you have the Voice Hall Museum about to pop off. Can you enlighten the viewers on what that is?
Okay, absolutely. So it's a Voice Hall, the Employee Gallery. It's a museum dedicated and for all things employee, right? It's about the employee voice, their experiences, their contributions, and what they bring to the workplace. Because as you know, there's no organization, there's no business without employees. And the gap that I identified is so we do have businesses and organizations who try their best to recognize, acknowledge their employees. But not I think, there is no space, there is no independent space for employees, right? So I thought of a museum. So you see that they literally have museums for everything. In doing my research, there's a toilet museum. There's a, if I'm not mistaken, there's a Frankfurter museum. In any case, there are museums literally for everything. So I thought, well, how come we don't have a museum for employees where they can come to visit, right? Get that dialogue going, and then I have so many ideas past this initial phase in terms of programming and other initiatives to help employees. I said to myself, why not? While again, like I said, while there are employers and organizations who might touch on that, some employers are better than others. Their main focus is to make money, right? So we needed an independent entity, right? A cultural platform that focuses on the employee voice, and that's how Voice Hall was created. So on Saturday, June 27th, next Saturday, we're having a private preview launch with selected folks invited, yourself too, Zeus. I hope you could make it. And it's just to introduce the concept, introduce the art, the installations, and again, get that dialogue going. And I'm nervous and excited at the same time, but we're gonna have fun. It's gonna be interesting. Through my research and interviewing different people, they said yes, no, this is very much needed. It's time. So I'm excited. I'm excited.
You've been talking about it for a long time. So it's great to see that finally it's coming to fruition because I know this was something very passionate to you
Yeah,
that you wanted to do. So it's just great to see that you're able to get it. It's finally here. And I think it's also great too because I think it kind of serves two purposes, I feel. One could be it can be a really encouraging experience for people to like get a real understanding of like especially from an employee standpoint of how much value they bring to a company. Because it gets talked about a lot. The bosses tend to underappreciate or undervalue their employees. They take it for granted that they're there and not realize how much they bring to a company, its value and just keeping things, the operations afloat, right? And then the other end is it's about the networking,
yes,
possibly. Like people come in there, they can kind of network. Next thing you know,
absolutely,
they're talking, and that might lead to an opportunity. You know what I mean? So I think it's great that you're setting that up in like the heart of the city. You know what I mean? So that people of all different backgrounds can come and you never know. Through this networking, through conversation, again, possibilities can happen, right?
absolutely.
So, I mentioned at the beginning, because this weighs heavy on my heart, because I'm noticing here, I got volume one, I got that, right? And then I got volume 2, right? But hold on a second. I'm missing volume 3 here. So, Sandy, do we have a volume 3 of Gotta Be a Better Way? Is it coming? Is in the works? What we got going on?
So it's yes, it's still in the works. We're not going to see that though until 2027, until next year. We got to get through this phase here with Voice Hall, and then 2027, absolutely. Uh, Volume 3 will be out. Now, my editor last year challenged me. She said, make Volume 3 positive, because in Volume 1 and 2, I spoke to some. I don't want to say negative, but you know how the workplace experience, there are some that you have ups and downs. She said she challenged me to make Volume 3 positive. So it's in the process, being in a space of positivity, working with clients who are feeling better, have that good energy, especially as of late with everything going on, the New York Knicks, right? I have more to
Yeah,
write
shout out
about.
to the Knicks.
Absolutely. I have more positive things to speak on and write about. So yes, Volume 3 will be out next year. Yes.
We're gonna hold you to it.
I'm sure you are.
Yeah. Anything else? Anything else you want to share with the viewers? What you got going on?
No, I have other stuff, but we're gonna keep it
Oh, we're
quiet.
gonna put a mute on that.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Well, hey, I don't blame you, man. Just keep things under your sleeve, keep things tucked. It's okay. You know what I mean? It's just nice to know, and it's always encouraging to know that you always got something going on. You know, like that's what I always appreciate about you and about our friendship.
Thank
Right
you.
from the gate, it's always about encouragement. It's always about, yeah, I hear you, Zeus. You struggling a little bit, but you got it. Maybe you just need to take a step back, look at it a different way, but you got it. So much blessings to you and
Thank
everything
you.
that you got going on.
Thank you.
If anybody deserves it, it's you, Sandy. You know, you
Thank you.
definitely your hard work is paying off, and I hope everything goes well with the exhibit, with the museum. Definitely looking forward to the book. Looking for uh all the new things that you're about to get into, and of course, we're going to have you back on the show to talk about it. You know.
Thank you.
So
Appreciate it.
definitely, again, I want to thank you again. Always an honor and privilege to have you on the show. I hope you guys took down a lot of the gems that was spoken here today. I hope it was encouraging and inspire you in some way, shape, or form. We're all about inspiring people, pushing forward on their ideas. It's always great to see like-minded people just doing great things. You know, even even if you per se don't have anything going on yourself, it's just a great vibe. It's a great
Yes.
feeling just to see and hear people doing what they love to do. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. You know who it is. It's Zeus Cruz of Olympian Multimedia. I don't need to emphasize it anymore. I appreciate you guys tuning in for this episode of From Spark to Success, with my great host, Sandrea Flowers. Again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll check you later.